Recently, or a while back, I started to remember these old Ronald McDonald videos. Old, Japanese, and looking like re-uploads. I still didn't know the proper context of these videos, even when I went back to finally watch them after all this time. What were they? Were they commercials? Were they official parodies? Or fan-made oddities? I still didn't know. And that's the part that kinda drove me crazy. What were these videos? They were somewhat viral on the early internet, but not viral enough to have countless videos made about them. I tried to scour the internet to figure out exactly what these commercials actually were. In doing so, I was reunited with probably one of the strangest videos on the entire internet. One that I definitely do remember seeing back in the day. Ronald McDonald Insanity. Now I was wondering one thing. Were these two things connected? And if so, what did they have to do with each other? But as I did more and more research, the lines between official and unofficial started to blur. A lot of the content that I came across was pretty bizarre and hard to research. Therefore, I did what any logical person would do and basically started researching McDonald's Japan from the very beginning to figure out exactly what was going on. McDonald's has a pretty long history in Japan, with the first one opening all the way back in 1971, only 31 years after the first one opened in the United States. That might sound like a lot of time until you realize the first McDonald's opened all the way back in 1940, and the good old clown has a pretty long history in the region himself. Being created in 1963, it took him almost 23 years to make his way into the American version, although in Japan, he was there almost immediately, on day one, all the way back in 1971, the same year that the first McDonald's opened up in Japan. The version of Ronald they have over there is a bit different. Instead of his name being Ronald McDonald, it is instead changed to Donald McDonald. Donarudo Marada Donarudo Makadarudo.
Donaldo McDonaldo.
The main reason for this change was the fact that Ronald was just simply harder to pronounce in Japanese. Therefore, Donald made a pretty good substitute, especially since the Japanese public was quite familiar with the name Donald from other Western exports, most notably Donald Duck, who basically did all the heavy lifting beforehand. Donald and Ronald are basically the exact same character, or at least they're supposed to be. Yeah, maybe you can throw out some weird conspiracy theory that maybe Ronald just has a bunch of siblings of all different races or something, and that Jack in the Box is their mentally defective brother that they threw in the basement cellar. It wasn't until the 2000s that we got some of the stranger material relating to some of McDonald's Japanese promotions. It's very important to remember that the 2000s were something of an oddity in advertising. Coming off of the late 90s, and just how insane some of those ads could be, you could only imagine how strange the world of Japanese Ronald McDonald's commercials would get during this period of time. I think one other thing that's pretty important to keep in mind is the fact that McDonald's as a brand is pretty universal, which means you're typically appealing to multiple different groups of people, not just children, but grown adults and also adults who were children who grew up with the brand and have certain expectations. Although contrasting McDonald's more family-friendly imagery and branding, the 2000s was also the era of the extreme and somewhat provocative at times, which meant this era of McDonald's advertising produced some of the strangest material in the company's history. One example is their promotion for the McGran burger, which includes some of the oddest marketing I've ever seen in a McDonald's commercial. In the TV ads, Ronald McDonald was replaced by a stylized fashion-forward model, or at least a pair of them. One of them was male and the other one was female. Honestly though, the male one kinda just comes off unsettling, while the female one surprisingly looks a lot like Taylor Swift, although it's not her, but instead Hungarian model Agorta Vegara. Apparently, these ads were quite popular with female audiences, which I don't completely understand, but I guess I'm not exactly the target audience. Although, to be fair, Miss McDonald's is pretty damn hot. This was obviously a pretty experimental time in McDonald's history, though. I mean, even their menu items were quite strange to say the very least. Back to Ronald McDonald Insanity. The footage is actually quite good. I know that some of it is grainy, but that's simply just because of how old it is. But it does seem to have an official quality to it, right? Honestly, though, the actual source material for Ronald McDonald Insanity was probably the easiest thing to find. I mean, you can just Google Japanese McDonald's commercial. But still, that doesn't explain why Ronald was chosen to be remixed and why his remixes went as viral as they did. I mean, the first video that comes up when you look up Ronald McDonald Insanity has 22 million views. So was it pure luck, or was there a reason that these specific commercials were remixed? Well, after looking back at the original commercials, it only takes a couple seconds to realize why these were remixed to begin with. I don't understand Japanese and never have, but these commercials do feel strange. Not creepy per se, but strange. Obviously, clowns are something that a lot of people get uneasy about, but the commercial series in and of itself, specifically the one that ran between 2004 and 2007, is quite peculiar. The ads were known as Donald no Iwasa, or Donald's Rumors. In them, Donald, or Ronald, basically just answers a set of silly questions in a playful and over-the-top way. These ads also feature the phrase "ran, ran, run" over and over again, which seems to be nothing more than a nonsensical chant that Donald does whenever he seems to be happy. These things paired together basically made it like crack for Japanese remixers. I think it's pretty important to mention the most popular Ronald Insanity video, the one that has 22 million views, was not the first video in the series. Although that one came out in 2008, the earliest one I could track down is one that was posted on May 3rd of 2007 by an NND user who uploaded a video which matched up one of these Ronald commercials with footage from the show Ultraman Mebius, which honestly did pretty well. But it wasn't until January 1st of 2008 when an anonymous NND user uploaded a mashup of Ran Ran Run and UN Owen. Eventually, the original upload was taken down. Luckily, it was re-uploaded on the same day under the title Ronald McDonald Insanity. And that's how we ended up with this iconic video. This video has a pretty insane cult status. Everything from 10th anniversary videos, which seem to be doing their own thing, to countless other remixes, re-edits, and strange interpretations of this Ronald McDonald Insanity thing. I say thing because I don't know what it is. Is it a genre or a trend? I mean, what kind of trend lasts almost 20 years? It's overall strange, but when I was a kid, this video really didn't creep me out that much. I don't know if it just felt a little try-hard to me, but I never felt like I was going insane, which I actually thought was something that could happen from watching videos. If you guys remember those old cartoon fight videos, where they started out with that disclaimer about not watching these videos under the influence of alcohol or drugs, I genuinely believed those warnings. I thought that if you did that, you would literally go insane. That something bad would literally happen to your mind. But I was like 7, so doesn't really matter. Although to me, Ronald McDonald Insanity didn't have the lasting impact that it may have had on other people. There was one video series that really did, and honestly disturbed me to my core as a kid. I'm specifically talking about a video that was uploaded in 2013. A video that seems to stitch together 4 separate Ronald McDonald commercials that are supposedly from Japan, where the plot is incredibly creepy and kind of disturbing. The first video features Ronald trying to break into a girl's house, but then realizing it's locked. The second one being one that involves the girl seemingly calling the police before realizing that Ronald is in the building with her. And the other ones are just as creepy. To me, it was the latter 2 commercials that always creeped me out the most. Specifically, the video where the girl looks out the window to see that Ronald McDonald is outside looking directly back at her. And the one where the girl is just casually talking on the phone, unaware of the fact that Ronald is literally under her bed. I don't know, something about these videos really creeped me out as a child. I mean, I knew that in all honesty, Ronald was not a real thing, but honestly, just the idea of a demonic clown somehow forcing his way into my house was just unsettling to me on a deeper level. These videos didn't feel as try-hard to me as something like Ronald McDonald Insanity. I also feel as if the mixture of basically almost no talking, specifically from Ronald, and that creepy jingle kind of lead to an atmosphere that feels more found footage horror movie than it does McDonald's commercial. These videos are deeply unsettling, but were they real? That was my main question, or at least the question that I wanted to answer for myself. It might seem like a weird question, but Japan has a tendency to make really weird commercials. Commercials that just wouldn't air in the US. But would these commercials air in Japan? That was the main question that I needed to answer. After doing a little bit of critical thinking, like 5 seconds worth, although now with my new, kind of more developed adult brain, it's pretty obvious that these commercials are really low budget. And whilst that's not always out of the ordinary, for a multi-billion-dollar corporation like McDonald's, with multiple international branches, it just doesn't really make any sense for them to go this route. Especially since the more bizarre McDonald's commercials we've seen so far seem to have a much higher budget. This might not have been something that people put together back in the day as easily, probably just because their heads weren't going there, but it is pretty obvious in retrospect. Maybe it was just the fact that Ronald is a pretty easy character design to pull off, but even then, the model is still off. Japanese Ronald is basically the exact same as American Ronald, just played by a Japanese person. So this doesn't exactly check out, right? And after doing a little bit more research, it's even more obvious that these commercials are just blatantly fake. Again, maybe something that should have occurred to my undeveloped baby mind, but didn't. Even if I thought there was a 70% chance that these commercials were absolute bullshit as a kid. But there was always something else that stood out to me about these commercials. They looked a lot older, like they were re-uploads or something. But after looking a little harder, I was able to track down the original upload, or series of uploads. See, Ronald was a reoccurring character on this YouTube channel that was originally known as Kickshin, but is now known as KKK FKK Project? Yeah, I don't really get the name, but this channel has multiple parodies and strange uploads on it. Their videos seem to parody everything from Dragon Ball Z to Mario, Sailor Moon, and they even somehow did the Plank Challenge 17 years ago. It's funny because some of these videos have barely any views. I mean, I have a video on this channel that has less than 300 subscribers that has more views than one of their videos featuring Vegeta, which is really well made, surprisingly. Although, some of their videos just straight up reuse footage from official things. I know that's a bit of a tangent, but Ronald is featured in their channel trailer, and he does make a bunch of appearances. Something else that really stood out to me is that despite the fact that most of this channel's uploads are from 18 to 16 years ago, they did seemingly come back 2 years ago to upload a video, and then came back 5 months ago again, 3 months ago again, and came back again just a month ago. I don't really understand what's going on with this channel, as there seems to be basically no consistency, but it is kind of funny that you could have been born, gone through school, first love, breakup, college, learn how to drive a car, whatever, right? All between uploads on this channel. I don't know. It's just funny to me. The Ronald video is way less creepy when you realize the context behind it. I feel like the fact that this was a Japanese video that was re-uploaded by an American with very little context as to where it came from was what gave it the mystique that it had. But finding the original Kickshin channel, or I guess KKKF whatever project, things really do change. So what now? After 12 years of this video just rattling around in my mind, I'm just supposed to let it go as I now know the origins of it? Well, I guess so. It's not like I have any other options. As for other creepy oddities from McDonald's Japan, I was unable to find certain things because they just seem to be lost media or something, such as these partially lost McDonald's commercials from the 1970s that seem to have an odd abstract vibe to them. But again, I really don't know what they're talking about because this is basically lost media. As strange as it sounds, I think that I did cover basically everything, at least everything that I could find. And so if you enjoyed this video, just remember to like and subscribe. It really does go a long way. Anyways, guys, I'm gonna go get me some Wendy's.